Every single day you make thousands of choices. What to eat for lunch, what to say to your boss, what video to watch next. But what if I told you that the feeling of making a choice is just that, a feeling? Today, we're going to dive deep into a single, frankly, groundbreaking experiment that asks a question that might keep you up at night. Are you really in control?
Okay, let's just start with a bombshell right out of the gate. Your brain decides what to do before you do. No, that's not science fiction. It's the wild conclusion from a lab experiment that sent shockwaves through neuroscience. Your brain literally kicks into gear, setting an action in motion, all before you're even consciously aware that you've decided anything at all.
And that, of course, leads us to the big, kinda unsettling question at the heart of all this. I mean, if your brain is calling the shots behind the curtain, what does that even mean for free will? Is that feeling of being in the driver's seat just a story we tell ourselves after the fact? To get to the bottom of this, we've got to go back in time. We're going inside the lab of a pioneering neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet, and we're going to look at a landmark experiment that really tried to map the exact moment a choice is born. This is what makes the story so powerful. The experiment itself, it wasn't some ridiculously complex thing. In fact, the beauty of Libet's work was in its elegant simplicity. But the findings? Oh, they were anything but simple. They basically challenged the very foundation of how we see ourselves. All right, let's get into it. Imagine you're the person sitting in the lab chair. The task they give you is incredibly basic. It's something you could do without even thinking. But the whole point is to catch that exact flicker of thought, that moment of decision. So here's the whole process. You're told to just watch a special clock. And then, at any moment you choose, whenever you feel that spontaneous urge, you just flex your wrist. That's it. The final and most crucial step is to remember and tell the researcher the exact time you saw on the clock at the very moment you first felt that conscious desire to move. See, here's what Libet was after. He wanted to create a timeline of a choice. To do that, he needed to isolate two very specific moments. First, the moment your brain unconsciously starts preparing the action. And second, the moment you consciously decide to act. The big question is, which one happens first? And to figure that out, he used two pretty simple measurements. He had these EEG electrodes on the person's scalp, which were basically listening for the buildup of brain activity, a specific signal they call the readiness potential. And for the other piece of the puzzle, he just had to trust the person's own report of when they felt that urge. So you have one objective measurement and one totally subjective one. Now, you'd think, right, that the conscious decision would come first, or maybe they'd happen at the exact same time. But that is not what the data showed. Not at all. What Libet found was a delay, a tiny but world-changing gap in time. This is it. This is the million-dollar question. What does the timeline of a simple, voluntary choice actually look like? Does your conscious mind command your brain, or does your brain prompt your mind? And this timeline, this reveals the shocking result. Okay, so 0 is the moment the wrist actually moves. But let's rewind. At minus 200 milliseconds, that's about a fifth of a second before the movement, people reported feeling that conscious urge. But the brain? The EEG showed that the brain activity started ramping up way back at minus 500 milliseconds. Let's just focus on that number for a second. Minus 500 milliseconds. That's a full half second. A half second that the brain was preparing to move the wrist before the person was even aware they had made a decision. It had a half-second head start. So the initial conclusion was just staggering and honestly pretty unsettling for a lot of people. It looked like our conscious awareness of a choice is just a spectator that shows up late to the game. The real decision was made unconsciously, deep in the machinery of the brain, long before we ever got the memo. But, and this is a huge but, that's not where the story ends. See, Libet himself wasn't totally comfortable with that bleak conclusion. He looked closer at his own data and proposed a fascinating twist in the tale. He called it veto power. Libet figured that while we might not consciously start our spontaneous urges, we still have this crucial power, the ability to consciously stop them, to say no to the impulse our brain just served up. And this difference is absolutely critical. Maybe we've been looking for freedom in the wrong place. This totally shifts the idea of control from free will, the power to start an action from nothing, to something he called free won't. That's the conscious power to either approve or reject the ideas that are bubbling up from our unconscious. This means that while you may not control the random urges that pop into your head, you absolutely control the final verdict. I mean, think about the urge to check your phone right now, or eat that cookie, or say something you know you'll regret. The impulse itself might just appear, a little gift from your brain. But the decision to act on it, well, according to this theory, that final verdict is all yours. So here's the takeaway. Think of it like this. Your brain is basically a suggestion engine, constantly throwing up ideas and impulses. But there is a critical, even if it's super brief, window of opportunity. And it's in that little gap between the urge and the action that your conscious mind can step in and exercise its ultimate authority, the power of no. And this brings all that science right back into your own life. Knowing that you have this power of veto, this free won't, what impulse or what habit or what distraction are you going to choose to consciously override today? The choice, as it turns out, might still be yours after all.